All right, everybody. It looks like we got 2 p.m. Eastern Standard, so we can go ahead and get started with our webinar today. My name is Nuwriy and I am the Senior Implementation Specialist over here at Smart Service. I've also got Jack on the phone. He is our newest implementation specialist, so he'll be chiming in with questions and things like that as we go. But let's go ahead and get started. Today, we're going to be talking about the 2021 features that you may have missed. We came out with a lot of stuff in 2021. And I want to make sure that everybody is caught up on all the different things that we created for you, all the different things that you guys requested that we create, which is how we get these enhancements. So let's go ahead and dive in. All right, first thing, welcome to the webinar. Like I said there, if this is your first time, we host these on the first Thursday of every month, and you can sign up for free at smartservice.com/webinar. If you can't make it to the live broadcast, we do publish these on that same page as well. So if you couldn't make it to this one, or you want somebody to see something, or you want to see something again, definitely check out that website. They're listed on the screen. And like I said, usually about 24 hours after the live broadcast, we'll have a copy of this available there. With that being said, this is an interactive event. I do want you guys to ask me questions as we go along here about some of these features. This isn't like the weekly Q&A ones where we just kind of do a free-for-all, ask any questions. We're going to keep the questions tailored towards the specific topics that we're going to talk about today, which is those 2021 enhancements. But definitely ask questions. Now, to do that, on the right-hand side of your screen in the GoToWebinar chat panel, there's a little question section. If you type out a question there for me, we can go ahead and read that question live over the air and get you an answer for it. With that being said, again, unlike the weekly webinars, since there are a lot of more people in this webinar, we're going to go ahead and have you guys do the questions via the chat panel instead of live over the air. So look forward to that here. But feel free to ask your questions. We want to hear from you. We want to get your opinions on these features or answer any technical problems that you're having with these features so we can get those solved and get you using them. Lastly, these webinars are based off of your suggestions. If you want to see a topic covered in the next monthly webinar here, let us know. When you go to leave the webinar, you'll be given a survey link. You can tell us how we did, but more importantly, you can go ahead and tell us what you want to see us cover in the next one. These webinars and the topics therein are 100% dictated by you guys. So you're deciding what you want us to cover and how we're going to cover it. So definitely give us some suggestions along the way. But let's go ahead and take a look at the features that we're talking about today. So here is a brief list of the items that we're going to be covering. So the version 111 features, that is we're on 112 now, but the next latest version here is going to be version 111. We added a service email address field. So we'll talk about service versus billing emails. We'll talk about the option to create statements in Smart Service. This is something that's been added if you have our merchant service card point. You have the ability to send statements out from Smart Service now. Let's see here. We've also got our Smart Routes start and end options. Those are actually really cool and probably my favorite feature in the list. We've made it so that Smart Routes, you can start the route at a specific point and end at a different point. And you can do that with coordinates too. It's really cool actually. So I'll go over that stuff. For version 110, a big one for I think all of our customers. It's something that we all wanted was that spell check getting added in. So I want to take a look at how that spell check works. It's pretty cool, like I said, something that's definitely been long overdue. So we're glad to put that in there for you in version 110. We've also got collecting payment on service agreements. That's another option that goes to that merchant service processor. So if you are using our service agreement module, now this is the paid service agreement module I'm talking about, then you can now send out an invoice so your customers can pay you online. And then lastly, we'll take a look at some of the version 109 features, the oldest ones on this list here. The big ticket item there is the prevent jobs from sending to QuickBooks. If you are running QuickBooks Pro or Premier, the desktop versions Pro or Premier, this is definitely a big feature for you potentially. I want to talk a little bit about why we made that feature available. There is a technical reason for that, but also what it can do for you. And then we're also going to talk about the duplicate time entry button, which is another pretty good one. And that's usually going to be for customers that have multiple technicians working on a job and you don't want to have to copy over the timestamps one by one. We made a quick and easy way for you to do that. But all right, so with all that out of the way and our list of things we're going to talk about here, I'm going to go ahead and open up my questions panel and we're going to go ahead and get started with some of these. So let me bring you over to the Smart Service screen so we can do that. All right, so you should be able to see Smart Service now here. so we can get started. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is that service email address field. Like I said, pretty cool one there. We're going to go into any customer, literally any customer will work for this one. So go ahead and open up our typical Lisa Aberdeen here. And you'll notice that when you upgrade to version 1.11 or newer, there is a billing email field and a service email field. So the reason for why we have two of these now, the billing email, that is the primary email that QuickBooks is going to receive. If you're going to be sending invoices from QuickBooks, you're going to want it to go to that billing email. So we made a special spot for that. If you're updating from a version previous to 1.11, what's going to happen is it's going to put your whatever email account you guys had in by default into the billing email. And it's also going to run a quick utility to push all those to the service email as well, making them all the same. So when you upgrade, you won't like lose a feature or have to worry about scrambling to get all these filled out to get things out to your customers. We'll handle that for you. But the billing email is the one that goes to QuickBooks. Now that service email field, the new one, that stays within Smart Service and also iFleet. The whole point of the service email field is so that you can send your emails, primarily your work orders, your fillable forms, your photos, and stuff like that from iFleet, out to a different email than the invoice is going. This works great for commercial clients. If you're working on behalf of some company or behalf of someone else, you probably want your on-site information, the photos and forms and stuff like that, going to whoever the on-site management team is, and they would be the service email. But usually there's, a billing department or something like that, an accounts payable that you're sending to, and that would be the billing email. So by making them separate there, you get the option. Now, on that note, a few things that come up when I talk about these fields are how do we add multiple emails? You can actually do that if you didn't know. If you come in here and you add a comma and a space, you can put in another email. That'll work just fine. In this case, QuickBooks is going to send this to both emails in there. The same thing would happen with the service email address field. So if you have multiple emails you want these things sent to, whether it's for billing or for service purposes, you want to go ahead and do it there. The last note that I have for you on this one, and again, folks, if you have questions about these, feel free to use that chat panel so we can get those questions answered. But the last thing I want to note is for iFleet. iFleet can see the billing and the service email. If you've given them the ability to edit the customer's email, which if I detour over to our settings window here, and I go into employees, I open up any of these employees. If you have given the ability to edit the email right here at the top right there, then that would let you go ahead and change that email out in iFleet. And Anthony has a question. Anthony says, can you add more than 2 emails to the field? Yes, you can, Anthony. You're going to run into a character limit before you run into a limit of how many emails I'm going to let you add. I think this is 255 characters is the maximum. So if you've got really long emails like we do here, probably not too many of them, but definitely a couple. But like I said, I'm pretty sure it's 255 characters-ish is the limit for the email fields. But yeah, easily add a couple of them. Just keep doing commas and keep adding them in. Some other things that reminds me of as well, since we're talking about iFleet and the emails, when you do go to complete the work order via iFleet, it's going to go ahead and bring up that service email. We did have some confusion with some customers who updated to this version that I want to clear up just in case someone hasn't updated to this yet. When you run the conversion in Smart Service, so like you update Smart Service first to 1.11, that's going to automatically, like I said, copy all the billing emails into the service email address field for you, thus filling out both fields, no problem. If your technicians update iFleet first, so if they're running the latest version of iFleet and you're not on version 110, iFleet is looking for that service email, which hasn't been set up yet, but they can just write it in. It's literally that easy. They can just tap on it and write it in. It asks them for it when they go to finish the work order, so shouldn't be a problem. If you run into it though with the tech, just have them fill it in and then update the office later. Let's see here. Kristen asked a question, is there a way to set the service email to be a default in iFleet? So the service email is a default in iFleet. iFleet sends work orders. You could call the work order an invoice, if you want to like click payment out in the field or something. But in this case, iFleet is basically looking at this as a work order, so it's going to always default to the service address there. it's not going to send anything to the billing address. It's always going to default to that service address. So if the customer is just one customer, it's a residential customer, what you do is put in their email in one spot, let's just say the billing spot, and then if you hit this down arrow, it'll copy the billing email into the service email. That way you don't have to write it out again. But yeah, they're one in the same email. But to answer your question directly, Kristen, it is just going to send to the default service email in iFleet. Okay, so those are good questions so far, folks. If you have more questions on that, definitely keep them in as we go through the stuff here. But I'm going to go ahead and jump over to our next topic, which is going to be creating statements in Smart Service. So let's go ahead and head over to our Office section. So I'm going to go to Dashboard and Office. Now, with this being said, this statement feature is something that you do pay for. Anytime there's something that you got to pay for, I do like to make that known for you, just so you guys know what we're looking at. This is part of our CardPoint merchant processing stuff. What that means is if you are doing credit card processing through Smart Service with our partner CardPoint, then you will have access to this statement feature. So that's important. If you're not using our merchant service, you won't see this as an option in your program. But the statement option is in Office down here under Statements. So I can go in here. And it's going to run a few checks here. It's going to get any customer names and balances from QuickBooks. So you'll give that a second to just make sure that everything that we are about to show you is up to date in Smart Service. So there it goes. And then we enter the statement screen. Now, this is going to display all of our customers. So we can make a statement for one customer, for several customers, whatever we want to do. The way to navigate through this screen here, let's start at the top. You've got your statement options, just like QuickBooks. If you're familiar with running statements in QuickBooks, these are the same options, just in a different arrangement. But you can pick which accounts receivable you're running this from. So I have 2 accounts receivable accounts. I can pick which one I want to look at. I can choose what I want the statement date to be. I'm going to go with the current date. That sounds right. And then I'm going to choose my statement period for what invoices am I looking for in here. So I can choose that information. Now I can say, instead of a statement date or statement period there, that we want to do all open transactions as of a certain date. So we can just click that and it'll just run for everything of all time that they haven't paid for. But I'm going to stick with just period of the last month or so. Over on the right-hand side, towards the middle, we have a few other options. So I can create one statement either per customer or per job. Most of you are going to favor the per customer option. That's definitely by far going to be the most common, and that's why it's the default in here. Basically, I don't want to create a separate ticket per individual work order that they have. If you're doing more of like projects on a job, that makes sense. But the majority of you just want a statement per customer account. So that's fine there. This show invoice item details on statements, we're going to toggle this one on and off a few times just to kind of get the difference down. If you just want to see, hey, this person had an invoice number, it's this invoice number on this date, and the total was this much, that is when you want to leave this box unchecked. It's just a brief summary. If you want the individual details of the items that make up that invoice that is being displayed in the statement, then that's when we check this box. I will show you what that looks like. Like I said, it's going to be a lot more congested because it's giving you a lot more detail on the individual items that they purchased from you. Majority of you will, again, leave this unchecked, and that's why unchecked is the default there. Now, I will be able to either preview this, which is what we're going to do, or I can email it right out to the customers. Since we are doing that merchant service feature here with this one, that means I can collect payment online for you, which is pretty cool. But I can do that from a statement now, and that's kind of the point of this feature here, is to take a collection of invoices for a customer account, make one statement out of them, and then push that to the customer so they can go ahead and get paid, or go ahead and pay you. Ross asked a question here. Ross wanted to know, he missed the part on how we get to the statement screen. So I'm going to back out for 1 second here. Ross, this is within the Office screen. Under Office, this only shows up if you have merchant services. At the bottom here under Management, the bottom middle is a Statements button. If you do not have this button, you either A, do not have merchant services, or B, do not have the permission to look at statements, which I will talk about towards the end here, because we might limit certain people from seeing this. But that's the screen that I'm accessing, is down here at the bottom middle. It just says Statements. So we'll let it go ahead and run that get customer names and balances again there, just to check with QuickBooks to make sure that everything is going. And while we're waiting on that too, I'll answer another quick question for Ross. Ross asks if Merchant Services is an add-on for Smart Service or QuickBooks. Ross, that is an add-on for Smart Service. A few versions ago, I think like 103, we came out with the option to collect payment from Smart Service. Of course, those payment records are going to be transferred back to QuickBooks for you. But if you want to collect payment out in the field, or if you want to email the customers from Smart Service a link where they can pay you online, that's definitely something to give us a call about so we can get that process started. And that goes for anybody on this call. If you want to look at that stuff, you can email our merchantinfo@myservicedepot.com account. Again, that is merchantinfo@myservicedepot.com to get started on that process if you haven't already. But we are in here. Let's go ahead and make some statements. So I'm going to make a statement out of our first customer in the list, Lisa Aberdeen. So I'm going to go ahead and click on her. Now, all you got to do is click on this one line for the customer record, and then I can hit preview. I want to talk about this one line a little bit before we hit preview, though. There is one important thing that I think people will occasionally mess up, and I want to make sure that we don't. Let's look at Anthony Allred down here, this one. So this customer, I want to run the statement on the customer level. That's going to capture anything within that customer's account, so all the invoices from all the work orders. Notice though they do have active job records in this screen. We gave you this option in case you do want to run the reports on, again, the instead of per customer, per job basis. The majority of you though should ignore the job records that are showing up in here. Right now, statement for Anthony is good. If I do Anthony and a job and another job, well, I'm going to see the information, all of it, for everything for Anthony on the customer level. And then I'm also going to have a separate statement for the individual jobs. So in essence, I'm sending Anthony 3 statements rather than a summary of his account, which would just be his one account there. So don't do that just because it duplicates the amounts. It would give you duplicate payment buttons, and then they will make an overpayment, which is not what you want. So it's important to just select the one, like so. Now, once you have that one selected here, you could go ahead and hit the preview button. All right, and then it'll run a few other checks here just to make sure that we've got all the payments and everything else that's been added in QuickBooks. Before I go further too, I would like to answer a question from Mark. Mark said we have been trying to set this up. Would someone please reach out to us? Mark, again, I'm going to have Jack go ahead and email you our merchant info at myservicedepot, or not email you, I'm sorry. He's going to go ahead and respond to your question in the chat panel with that email, so you have a copy of it. You just got to email those folks, let them know you're interested in merchant services, let them know your company, and they will reach out to you from that. But that is a different department, so I will have those guys go ahead and contact you if you go ahead and send them a message. So Jack, if you could, go ahead and send him that merchantinfo@myservicedepot.com account in his in an answer to his question, please. But all right, so we are looking at our statement here, and this one I made pretty easy because we didn't check that display all the items option. Let's go ahead and see what we got. So I got my logo on here. I've got my company information on here. I've got where this would be mailed if I choose to mail it, because of course you can choose to mail it up here at the top if you want to print it out or send it in an email. Over on the right, I've got the statement date. Now I chose that statement date, so that's important. There's also the amount due section here, which is what the customer owes me still. And then to kind of explain why the customer owes me that much, I have a quick breakdown of all the things on their account. So I've got this balance forward line. This is going to depend on, if I scroll down a little bit, how much money is overdue from the past so many days. So outside of my statement range that I've just run here, it's basically telling me, hey, you got to balance forward before this range of this much. And then it's going to be a breakdown on the different invoices, how much they were, different payments the customer made. And again, I could see that in here, any customer payments they've made. But this would be sent out to your customer at this point. Now, if you email it from here, it's not going to attach the payment link. This is more of just a basic email function there. If you come back in here and you hit this email button, though, that will append that payment link and let you do that. Let's see, Harold asks a question here. Where do I find create statements? Well, Harold, I think you're going to be in the same boat that Ross was. Either A, you don't have merchant services enabled, which I remember your company, I believe you do, which means you are actually in case B, which is you need permission. So let's go ahead and talk about that a little bit. To get to this screen here, what you wanted to do If it's not showing up in Office at the bottom, you're going to need to go into Settings, Employees. I'm going to open up one of your employee profiles. Inside the employee profile, we're going to want to go to Permissions. And at the very bottom of the left list, there's an Allow Statements option. If you have merchant services and you have this option checked, that option will show up inside of the Office screen. If this is unchecked and you do have merchant services, you're still not going to get it. So make sure you both have merchant services and have checked the box. All right, folks. So that'll take care of everything for statements. That one's a pretty quick and easy feature. A lot of people are intimidated by statements. They're really not that bad. It's just a quick way, instead of sending the customer, 5 or 6 different emails or sheets of paper or whatever it is for their invoices, you can create a statement to quickly summarize that stuff. The only other option I want to talk about before we leave this section here, I'm going to go ahead and choose Lisa one more time. And let's check this Show Invoice Item Details. Like I said, most of you probably won't check this button unless you really want that detail on there. But let's go ahead and check it, and let's take a look at what it looks like now. So it'll again run that check to see if there's anything that's been added to QuickBooks. And you see now my statement is much longer. It has a lot more stuff on it. It's basically going to give me a breakdown on what items were added, at what quantity, at what rates, and everything that composes that statement. You can also see the tax amount in there as well. So those are those options there. Gives you just a quick breakdown of everything for the customer. Like I said, in this case with detail, if we choose to include the invoice item details. But all right, so we're done with statements there. Let's go ahead and take a look at our next feature, which is going to be our Smart Routes start and end options. Go ahead and close out of statements here. Now, again, this Smart Routes thing in general is another paid feature. That's something that's important to look at. Smart Routes is a convenient tool to route your jobs. If you have a list of work orders that you want to get done, you can go ahead and use the Smart Routes tool to figure out when you should do those work orders. It gives you a nice, easy way to plot those out on the map and figure out what is the most convenient route for your company to run. On the side of that, Smart Routes also comes with another feature that allows you to say, hey, I've got this other work order I need to do. Where am I going to be closest to this customer? And we'd be able to go ahead and figure out, hey, you'll be down the road from this guy in 2 days. It'll be this technician at this time. It'll basically help you keep your schedule efficient by looking at what's already on the schedule and making suggestions on where to place the work order from there. All right. Let's see. Demir, you asked a question that I don't understand. You said, can run the report for location. I'm going to go ahead and have Jack message you through the chat panel there just to get some more details on what you're trying to ask me there. Now, I will tell you, if you are having a question that is not related to the webinar topics, go ahead and reach out to our support team. We are going to limit the things that we're talking about in today's webinar just because of the number of people to just the topics of the webinar. So I'll have Jack go ahead and reach out to you there and see if that fits in our syllabus here, or if we can get somebody to give you some help. Okay, hold on. And he's giving me some more information here. Can I run the statement for locations? Yeah, locations do appear in there. That is a good question, actually. Let me get back in there. I don't think I have many customers in our database with locations, but yes, you should be able to see that. They are essentially counted as customers to us, and that's why you don't see like a third option in there. But you should be able to see the record type right here. So if you have locations, hey, there's one. There's a location showing up. There's another location showing up. So yeah, you can run it for locations. Those do show up in there. All right. So that'll take care of that one here. So back to Smart Routes. What the feature that we're going to be talking about today is, in the past, you basically could route from whatever was in your settings section. So this is our office, our current office address, and basically my technicians would come and go from this property. Well, we've changed that quite a bit since those days. In the later versions of Smart Service, you have a couple extra options. On the employee level, go into any of these employees, I can set an address in here. So I can say, hey, I want this person to leave from their house, or I'm a really nice company and I'm going to make sure that their jobs take them in the direction of their house for the end of the workday. You can put in an address here, which let's go ahead and do. So I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to send them back home here. And we'll go ahead and provide more information. There we go. All right. Now, if I don't do anything else, they're still going to get directions from the office address. That's where the new checkboxes come in. So I can say, hey, go ahead and start them with the user's address, this one here. And if end is unchecked, it will direct them back towards the office at the end of the day. Hey, that works great if they got to drop off the truck, right? Or they got to do some end of the day stuff, restock, clean up, whatever it is. If I want them to start at home, or if I want them to end at home, I'll have them come to the office to pick up the truck, maybe leaving this box unchecked. And I'll check, go ahead and end the driving directions near this address. So if that's their home, that should take them as close as possible to home based on whatever work orders they have for the day. So those things are pretty helpful. If you want them to start and end at home, just check both boxes. Now, with that being said, we did run into some customers that do not have very good addresses where they are. So we gave you an alternative as well. Maybe address is not the best way to route things. If you have a large building or in like an office complex where you got unit A, unit B, and so on, this gets a little bit complicated for mapping software. So what we gave you was the ability to go ahead and put in a latitude and longitude instead. So I got that right under those same checkboxes is a lat and long option. So if you want to go out and pick a spot specifically on the map, you can do that, and you can say, hey, I want them to go to this spot on the map, and then enter in the latitude and longitude from there. So again, another great little feature there. Really helps you figure that out. Let me pull something up here that I'm going to show to the rest of you guys. Let me go ahead and bring up an address on Google Maps real quick. And I'll bring this over to you in just a moment, folks. All right, so we're going to go to this random spot in Ohio for a moment. You should be able to see mapping. When you are in here, you can go around and you can see we're under several winter storm warnings. But if you zoom in on an area and you're trying to pull coordinates, let's just go, yeah, sure, over here. You come in, you can right click on Google Maps and it'll give you the option to show you those coordinates. So I can click that and it'll copy those to my clipboard, and then I can paste them in the Smart Service. Again, just find your office on the map, wherever it is, right click there, and it'll give you coordinates. So my guy would end up in whoever's backyard this is if I use those coordinates, but pretty easy. That way you get those coordinates, you can use them, and then you just paste them in here. Now, some of you will also want that same feature, not just for the drivers individually, but you may want that ability back here under company. Well, down here is a latitude and longitude option as well. This would set it for the company preference. So if this is set to a non-zero value, as in you have coordinates in here as I do here, it's going to route my guys to this location instead of using whatever's up here for the company. And again, if I have it set for that one particular user over here, I have theirs set, it's going to route them based off these checkboxes. These checkboxes kind of take priority over everything else, but if you're just using the company address, you can set it to coordinates if you want, or your physical address. But that's pretty much it for there. There's no real change inside of Smart Routes when you do this. It's just going to use this as a start end point, so there's no setting or anything else you got to do when you make the route. Just know that it'll consider this address when things are scheduled to this employee rather than the default company address. Okay, so that takes care of that feature. The next one is the spell check. Again, this is a pretty big one here. I think we all wanted a spell check in Smart Service, and we finally got it in there, which is great. With that being said, when you download version 110 of Smart Service and it gives you the spell check options, what it's going to do is it's going to check what version of Microsoft Office you're running. If you have a full version of Access, it will run off of that program to do the spell check. If you do not have a full version of Access, it will download something called Microsoft SharePoint. And SharePoint is basically a special little thing that just does, well, it does a few other things, but for our purposes, it's just going to do the spell check. So if you update to version 110 or later and you see a little SharePoint prompt there, go ahead and install that one. That feature is specifically for our spell check option. All right. So to use the spell check, we can go to whatever work order we want. Let's just go ahead and open one up. And in here, we go to our instructions, and we can go ahead and put in a note. So whenever you put in a note, like so, and you want it to be spell checked, you can just right-click in that section there, and there's now a spell check option. Again, you will only see this if you are running the version with SharePoint or with full access, and it's above version 110, which again would be the majority of the customers joining this, I would imagine. But if you don't see this option, give us a call or shoot us an email, and we can send you the password for it. But I can go in here, and I'll do a quick spell check. So let's go ahead and test this out. Let's go ahead and misspell something. So we're going to try to spell test, and we're not going to do it very well. We're going to go ahead then and come in here, right-click that, spell check. Oh, and I guess I added that as a word at some point. Let's try a different word. Let's see if that should not be a word. Oh, and something is going wrong with my spell check, it looks like today. That's unfortunate. When you go to do this, I will have our team double check on what's going on with our spell check. This may be something on my computer today, but it should run a spell check and tell you when you're misspelling things. Looks like mine is not liking to work. Go ahead and try it again just for fun. Yep, okay. I'll have our team look at that there. I think there's something wrong with the full access version of spell check, but you won't find out these things till you try, right? But this should be a spell check for the Office side. With that being said, there has always been technically a spell check inside of desktop or inside of iFleet. The iFleet spell check there is based off of whatever keyboard that you're using. And Kaylin asked a question there. Mine never runs spell check for emails to customers. So if you right click in there, you'll want to go ahead and try to run that there. Hopefully it works a little bit better than mine did today. That's our bad on this side. But yeah, it's running off the Microsoft Office spell check. So whatever you guys have working for that will work just fine for here. And looks like Jack is going to get me some feedback on what's going on with our spell check and if there's an issue. Let's see. I see. All right. So here's what we're got going on right now. It looks like we are currently running into an issue where it does do the spell check. So let's go and try what Jack is saying. Go ahead and misspell a word. It looks like these things aren't being spell checked until we click out of that field or like click into another tab. So let's go ahead and try the spell check now. Let's see what we get. There we go. All right, so that still looks like something that we need to get fixed there. But you see it does bring up that spell check, and it does give us a few options there for how to correct this. So I was trying to spell test, obviously got it wrong, and it's going to give us the options so they come up here, and then we can go ahead and say, hey, this one looks correct. Let's go ahead and change that for me. And now we're good to go. Now, the one thing about this spell check, and this has to deal with Microsoft Access as well, you are probably used to a more active spell check that as soon as you spell something wrong, it would tell you right away. With Microsoft Access, they didn't give it the same spell check that like Microsoft Word has. I know it's unfortunate, but if you right click it and try to run it that way, it should let you spell check. Let me test something out here. Now that it's active in the spell check, I think we just had to activate it. If I do that again, then we right click. So it's not doing like a red underline. That's important. It's not going to do that. But if we run the spell check now, okay. So it is once you click out of a tab and you save something into the database at the current moment. But like I said, that's an issue that we should be working on soon anyway. All right. So that is the option for spell check here. Kaylin, for your question, like I said, it's usually going to be this notes tab in the way that I just demonstrated it. So that's when you'd see the spell check. If you are doing an email to a customer, if you're using this email button up here at the top, let's go ahead and email this customer. Yeah, the spell check option is in there as well. But again, because you'd have to like click out of this field or something and then go back and run the spell check at the current moment, that's how that would work. But it does look like it does exist in there as well. Okay. Our next thing here is collecting payment on service agreements. There's not too much to really show with this one here. For this particular item, what we've added is back in our office under the service agreement section over here on the right hand side. You got a service agreement option, and in here, if you were to send one of these to the customer, it will now include that payment portal link so the customer can pay you online. Let's see here. I don't believe we have a good way to preview that link, or at least I know we don't on the statements. But if you came in here and you were to either post this, which can send it to the customer, or if you were to go ahead and hit this email button here to bring up that service agreement and get it sent out to the customer, it will go ahead and include a link for the customer to pay you online. Now remember, they're paying whatever amount you're telling them to pay here. If you want to adjust this amount, it's not so easy as just typing in something like you do on a work order. That amount is going to be generated by opening up the contract based on what they should be paying or how often they should be paying. So the contract amount is $950. I'm dividing that into a 12-month term, billing monthly. So that's where it's getting that amount from there. So yes, it's based on the items, but it's really based on how you're dividing that amount up for the year. But you got an option to go ahead and get that sent out to the customer now. On that note, one thing that I wanted to point out, we can make different templates for service agreements. We can make different templates for work orders and stuff like that. I'm having one of our forums gurus work on one for you guys right now, actually, that I want to get out to everybody. If you want something that, let's look at the default one right now, real quick. And I'm guessing that popped up on another screen here. Let me go ahead and bring you guys back to our slides here and check my other screens for that that option there. Yeah, it sure did. This is the fun of when we're working at home. We're having pretty bad storms here, so everybody's at home. I'm not actually in front of my computer, so we're just looking at one monitor at a time. But here we go. Bringing it back over to this one. All right, so that's the basic service agreement template. That's what comes with the program. Pretty simple document. We made this so everybody has access to it. That's using the service agreement section. But like I said, you can get these customized for your individual company and get this turned into whatever you want. So that's an option to know about. That works for work orders, whether they're from here, from iFleet, anywhere in the program that you want to send something, we can customize the documents that you're seeing. All right, and then coming up on some of the last things that we're going to get into here today is going to be the version 109 features. One of them is going to be the prevent sending jobs to QuickBooks option. So I can here to settings, and from settings I go over to our default section. There's a new checkbox in here that says do not add jobs to QuickBooks. Now I want to preface this a lot. There are a lot of things that change when you don't add jobs to QuickBooks. So let's back up a little bit. Let's look at why this feature is adding jobs to QuickBooks and why you might want to disable it. So the jobs to QuickBooks function, what that is meant to do is give you guys a more divided up sense of reporting. It lets you get in there and kind of look at reports on a per service basis. That's usually for job costing is the primary reason why we're doing that. Everything is visible from within the customer record. So not a problem if we want to look at the given customer and see all the invoices and payments there. But on the per job level, that's really where those invoices live. They're visible on the customer, but they live under the job. That way you go to run a report on that particular job. If you've got the invoice there, the estimate there, the sales order there, the purchase orders there, the times there, you can get a pretty good job costing report out of QuickBooks from doing that. So that's why we started creating jobs in the first place. Now, the majority of you are running either QuickBooks Enterprise or QuickBooks Online, in which case this setting doesn't really matter for you guys. So if you're Enterprise or Online, you don't have to worry about this setting whatsoever. But if you're a pro or premier, there's something that you guys should know about QuickBooks that's really important there. There is a hard limit of 14,500 names in a customer list. When you look at all the customers you can create and all the jobs you can create and all that stuff, QuickBooks is going to force you to upgrade to Enterprise when you hit that 14,500 customers jobs, just names in general, just 14,500 things. So Pro Premier does have that limit. That's not something that I have anything to do with. That's something that's purely QuickBooks deciding that that is the time that you guys need to upgrade to Enterprise. With that being said, since we are not helping in that regard because we're sending over these job records, we wanted to go ahead and give you guys the ability to disable the jobs from going over to QuickBooks just to save some extra space. That way, when you do eventually hit that 14,500 limit, it's at least, you know, all customers, it's all new accounts and stuff like that, rather than just your existing accounts and whatever work orders we've done for them. So we can go ahead and check that setting there, which would let us do that. Now, with that being said, there are some downsides to this feature. It's not all good. With no jobs in QuickBooks, things that I can't do are going to be like purchase orders. I can't create a purchase order in QuickBooks because purchase orders are generally assigned to that job. So since Smart Service can't push a purchase order over to the job level, there's no more purchase orders in Smart Service if this do not send jobs is checked. Your timestamps, you can still send timestamps over to the timesheet in QuickBooks, but they won't be associated to that particular work order or invoice anymore because we're not sending over that job record to parent those things to. So the times still go over, they'll just be parented to the customer in general, though, kind of non-specific. If you're trying to run a job costing report, you definitely don't want to check this. So those are some big items there, at least the two biggest items that you're going to run into. The other smaller item that is still relevant is going to be our ability over here in estimates to create a estimate. Create an estimate in QuickBooks when we go to send the job over. If there's no job record, I can't send the estimates. If there is no job record in QuickBooks, it's also difficult to pull the estimates from QuickBooks and import them into Smart Service. But again, not everybody uses POs. Not everybody cares about times going to QuickBooks. Not everybody cares about having estimates in QuickBooks. If those features aren't important to you and you're on Pro or Premier, the setting is definitely worth you checking to slow down that hitting that 14,500 limit. So that is definitely an important one there. And again, if you guys have questions about that, do let me know in the chat panel there. I know that comes as a shock to some people sometimes there, where we tell you about that limit. Again, it is a QuickBooks limit. It's something you can find on their website. They have a list of all the different limits that you can have in a given version of QuickBooks. In the future, we're looking at putting up a prompt that's going to warn you when you get close to this setting. I think one of the hardest calls that we have for our team here is when we get a hold of you guys and you've hit that limit and you're in the middle of the workday and you just want to get back to work, and there's nothing you can really do because QuickBooks has imposed this limit that says, hey, you can't add any more stuff. Well, that kind of hits the brakes on your workday. So we're going to go ahead and give you a prompt that's going to check every day to see if you are 500 customers away from that limit, so we can at least warn you, so we can get you taken care of, get this setting checked, and then if you want to upgrade to Enterprise, great. At least we bought you a little bit of time. Now, again, everybody's going to hit that limit eventually. That's just going to be something that happens. That's a good thing. You've got 14,500 customers. That's good. Your business is growing, but you probably don't want it to grow to the point where it's going to cause a problem. So we're going to try to help you out there. Haley asked a question there. Haley asked, how do I set up spell check? Haley, what you want to do is upgrade to version 110 or newer. Our latest is 112.2, which is available on our knowledge base. You can email our support team for the password so you guys can run the update. But any version past version 110 will contain that feature. And all you got to do is just show that off again here. Inside of a work order, I'll get my alert here. If we go to our instructions, you'll want to type in a note. Now, like I showed you earlier, we were having an issue currently where if we don't click out and save this information to the database, basically is really what it's doing there, then the spell check won't catch that I misspelled something. But if I come in here now and I do the spell check, it'll find that and bring that up. So it'll fix it for us by selecting there. Right. And see, made that correction. So that'll be in there. Kaylin asked another question here. Let me see. So not related, but pretty quick answer. Kaylin said, if I choose no when converting proposals in Smart Service to QuickBooks about the sales order, will it not ask me again? Yeah, if you choose no, it won't ask you again. That's a one-time conversion there. So if you got it set to ask, then you'll want to make that choice at that time. There's not really a way to get that choice back. That's a good question. Yeah, Haley, you'll just need the password for that version. Now, on that note, one other thing I did want to share with you guys here, if you're not sure what version of Smart Service you're running and you're looking for some of these features, on any workstation, you can go up here to the Help tab at the top. And under Help, you can hit this About window. And that's going to open up and tell you what version of Smart Service you are currently running. So it'll say version, Enterprise, 10, point, and then a number. Version 10 in general is your product, Smart Service 10. But then the numbers 112.2 in my case are the version that my workstation is running. Now, technically, you could have workstations that are running different versions, then that is not good. You want to make sure that your workstations are all running the same versions. If let's say I update to a version that has the statement feature in it, and one of my coworkers did not, if they try to open up the Office screen, the database is saying there should be a new feature in there for statements, but their workstation is saying I should know about that new feature. So it's not going to work. It's going to create a conflict there. So when you do update your Office, don't just update yourself. Get a plan to update everybody, if not immediately, very soon after, just to avoid any compatibility issues with older versions and the newer features that are going to be available in the program. All right, and then our last thing for the day here is the duplicate time entry button. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at that one. Now, when you go out and you do a job in iFleet, see here, you're going to want to go ahead and if you right click and you do the view time details, you should have some timestamps for that job. So here's a timestamp for this job. We can see that I was the one who went out on this date and did some work. Looks like I did a production timestamp. But let's say I had a friend with me and I want that friend to go ahead and get updated or get that that timestamp too. So instead of me hitting add and adding a whole thing in, having to look to see, you know, okay, well, Nuwriy was here from here to here, so I'm going to put my other person here to here. Check this out. You can take a timestamp in this window, and you can just hit this little duplicate button over here on the right. It says duplicate record. So that will make a copy of that timestamp, and then I can just switch that to whoever the other person is. And I can do this as many times as I want to do it in the window here. It's just going to keep adding in timestamps. So from one technician's timestamp, if maybe I was the only one with a device, and the other two were with me, but they don't have devices, I can quickly add them in this way. Now, Nuwriy, me, from the device, can also do this stuff. You can also add in timestamps for other employees. That is using the additional time function that's in iFleet there. But you have the option to do it this way after the fact as well if you don't want your technician having to worry about that. Now, another thing that's important, if you want to edit this timestamp, you can still. So you don't have to be the exact times. If I want to change this, maybe Jess was there a little bit longer or something like that, I can just make that adjustment, but I can get you 90% of the way there by copying that. All right. Leslie, I'm going to have Jack go ahead and answer your question there via the chat panel. You were asking if there's a quick way to tell how many customers you currently have. Yeah, that'd be a report. So you'll want to run a report for that. If you need help running reports, I would say visit our smartservice.com/webinar page, where you got plenty of updates on our webinars on how to do reports. So I'll have Jack go ahead and direct you towards one of those reporting webinars, or reach out to our support team and they can help you run that report. What update is the timestamp duplicating on from Renee? Renee, that is version 109 of Smart Service. So that was like the very beginning of 2021. So you probably have that option by now. If not, yeah, let's get you updated because we're in version 112 now, and I don't want you to miss out on all these other cool things we've been talking about today. Now, I did this quickly from the calendar. I do want to make a point, though, in case you're not familiar with that time window, that you can do this from other windows in the program as well. Primarily, if not from the calendar, under Office, and under the, mine says post invoices at the bottom left, yours might say post work orders or whatever you want, because you can change the terminology here. In there, when you go to bring up some work orders, let me go ahead and bring up something that I've got. There we go, there's a bunch of stuff. You've got a few things, including timestamps, this production time value. So I can see any jobs that have a production time value in here. Here's one at towards the bottom. If I click on that timestamp, it opens up that same window. And again, I can duplicate times from here. So I can go ahead and make those adjustments. One thing I didn't get to talk about yet with this option, you'll notice that when you change the employee, it's going to pick whatever the employee's payroll and service items are. So dispatcher didn't have anything assigned to him, and when I picked dispatcher, it changed it. So we had James. See, James has payroll stuff set up on his profile. If I change it to someone that doesn't, though, it will correct itself and fix it to whatever is correct for that employee. So if they're getting paid, different payroll items or something like that, it will correctly identify that pay or that payment type. Haley asked a question. Where do I enter the password? Haley, you'll want to go ahead and download a copy of our update from smartservice.com/knowledge base or smartservice.com/update. And when you do that, it'll download a little file, and you'll go ahead and run that file. If you go to our knowledge base as well, and again, that's smartservice.com/knowledge base, and you just type in update, there's actually an article and a video tutorial on how to run updates in Smart Service and all the different things that come with that. So definitely check that video out if you're having trouble on where to run the update. But yeah, you just download a file, run the update. It'll ask you for the password along the way. Let's see here. We got one last question then. Yeah, that's related to the duplicating time stuff. John said, can you have different pay rates individual to each employee used for those time entries? Yeah, you can. So this is not a pay rate here. Hourly rate is just the payroll item that should be associated with this. This is usually going to be, an hourly rate. If you're in a state with prevailing wage, then you'd have prevailing wage here as an option. Any other options that you would have in here, payroll items. This can pull everything from QuickBooks if you have like a disability option or something like that as well. But this isn't determining how much money an hour that a tech makes, just what item to pull from their list. If I go over to QuickBooks here, so let me go ahead and find over here. Inside of QuickBooks, when I set up my employee, let's go into the employee screen. Let's go to James. When I set up the employee James, under his payroll info tab, I'm picking out what items should be here. So that's where this is coming from. And then the rate he's getting paid will go right here. So if James makes, let's just say $18 an hour, the amount that he's getting paid is coming really from here, but the hourly rate is just the type of pay that he's getting. So it's really a category of pay, not so much the rate itself. But this gets set on each individual profile. All of my profiles can see hourly rate because you're either hourly, salary, commission. There's only so many options there. But on each person, you can set individual rates for how much they are paid. So completely different setting there. But yeah, it's just going to push that, in this case, $18 an hour now over to James. All right, folks. Like I said there, that pretty much does it for our list of things that came out in the year 2021. I'm going to go ahead and bring it back over to our main webinar slides here just to show you a few other quick resources. Of course, if you have any questions, definitely bring those up along the way here. First off, this video and all other videos like it, these monthly webinars, will be available at smartservice.com/webinar. That has a ton of these videos. We've been doing them for a while. You can also sign up for the new ones there. You can also vote for what you want the new ones to be there. But these go over a wide variety of topics. There are expert tutorials. They are generally, because today's a little bit of a special one, They are generally an hour-long video on a very specific topic. If you want to see everything that has to do with the time entries in Smart Service, there's a whole hour-long video for literally everything you can do with Smart Service and QuickBooks and time. Same with if you're trying to do a multi-day job where you got to go back a couple times, or an install or something like that. There's a video for that stuff over there available as well. Related to today's stuff here, the middle link there, the smartservice.com/updates option. Oh, and Todd, if you're looking for that web address, it should be on your screen there, Todd. So you should have those right in front of here. But you've got the middle option there, the smartservice.com/updates. That is going to be the updates page. There are abridged versions of little videos for each version of Smart Service. So it's like a little 8 or 10 minute thing that I produce there. Just kind of goes over the highlights of each version. There are some features that we skipped today in the webinar. We try to get, kind of the biggest and largest features that are coming out in those versions. But if you want to see everything that came out in that version, head over to smartservice.com/updates. You can get caught up on what new features have been made available to you. Lastly, and one of the links I've referenced the most in this webinar here is going to be the smartservice.com/knowledge base link. This is our online manual for Smart Service. That's something that me and Jack create. So if there isn't an article for it, send us a message. We'll get an article up there for you. But this has all of our tutorial information, all of our videos, all of our documentation on how to use the program and what certain features do. So if you're looking at the Smart Routes option, you're like, that might work out well for my business. There's actually a little demo video over there you can check out so you guys can get an idea of what it's doing before you purchase it. Same with all the other add-ons, same with all the windows that come with Smart Service as well. They all have their own little sections there with some additional details and some things you might not have noticed before. Lastly, we do recommend personalized training. We usually recommend 2 hours every 2 years to stay up to date on the latest and greatest features. Since we're putting out features like this all the time, the stuff that we sold you on in the beginning might not be the best way to do things anymore. The process that we showed you in your original demo, we might have upgraded. We might have done something better. There might be a quicker and easier way to get that stuff done. It's always good to check in with the training department, like I said, about 2 hours every 2 years, just to get an idea of what is available now in Smart Service, especially when we're talking about all these new features and functions. You can reach our implementation team at the phone number listed on screen there, that 888 number. But that's pretty much everything we had for today, folks. I did want to say, if you are in an area that is getting all the ice and snow like we are here in Central Ohio, stay safe out there. Definitely does not look fun outside, that's for sure. But we will talk to you guys in the next webinar. Thanks for coming.